Different formations and their advantages and disadvantages. Let's get right into it and start with the 4-4-2 formation. What are the advantages of this formation? Teams in the 4-4-2 formation are usually characterized by a clear division on the field. The fact that this formation has only 3 lines, 4-man defense, 4-man midfield, and 2 forwards, means that the team can operate in a vertically compact manner, with the 4-man lines close together and the 2 forwards in front keeping the distance to a minimum. The space to be played in for the opponent can be reduced enormously. At the same time, the 4-4-2 formation is very versatile. If a team wants to increase pressure in midfield, a midfielder can move out. It is also possible to play with very deep wingers. A 4-man defense can quickly become a 5-man defense, or even a 6-man defense. From the 4-4-2, you can move extremely quickly into practically any other formation. The advantages of the 4-4-2, good balance, high versatility, are also its disadvantages. The formation is very balanced, but the defending team has no real advantage anywhere on the field. Neither in defense nor in midfield can it easily achieve a numerical superiority, as is the case with other formations. Another problem is the clear lines. If the defending team is not careful, the opponent can occupy the space between defense and midfield, for example, between midfield and forward. The players must be careful not to let the resulting gaps between the lines become too large. 4-4-1-1. In the past years, a variation of the 4-4-2 has been the most popular. In this variation, the 2 forwards are offset from each other, creating a 4-4-1-1. The advantages? The staggered roles of the forwards make it easier to protect the space between the forward line and the midfield. One striker can start pressing and his colleague can watch over the passing routes into the midfield. In this way, a team has more control over the central zone than in the classic 4-4-2. This variation is often referred to as 4-2-3-1. The 2 central midfielders are called the double six. In practice, however, the wingers are usually on the same line as the double six, so I choose the term 4-4-1-1. The advantages and disadvantages are similar to those of the 4-4-2. This variant is also extremely versatile. The 2 rows of 4 create a high degree of compactness in defense and midfield. The width of the field, however, cannot be covered as well as in formations with at least 1 row of 5. In addition, balls between the defensive and midfield lines are still possible. And also, the deeper role of a striker means that counterattacks are not as easy as in a 4-4-2, 4-1-4-1. The 4-1-4-1 closes a gap in the first 2 formations. An additional midfielder, called a 6, secures the space between the defensive and midfield lines. There is no longer a gap between the defensive and midfield lines. The 4-1-4-1 also offers the possibility of better defending the width. The 6 moves into the 4-man midfield line for this purpose. The resulting 4-5-1 covers the width of the midfield well. In general, the 4-1-4-1 or 4-5-1 is suitable for establishing a high level of control over the midfield. Here, the defending team is well positioned in terms of numbers with 5 players. The main problem of the 4-1-4-1 is the lack of strikers. In this variant, the striker is completely on his own. This means that only little pressure can be exerted in high pressing. In addition, there is a lack of counterattacking power, even more so than in the 4-4-1-1. For this, other players must advance. Then the variant would no longer be a 4-1-4-1, and the advantages of the high presence in midfield would be gone. 4-3-3. The 4-3-3 is often considered to be congruent with the 4-1-4-1. Because the 4-3-3 can be quickly created from it, the 2 outer midfielders simply have to move to the same height as the striker. Strictly speaking, the 4-3-3 should be called a 4-1-2-3. However, the design of a 4-3-3 is different from that of a 4-1-4-1. The focus here is primarily on the 3 players in the forward line. They can exert high pressure on the opponent. The 3-man midfield secures the center behind them. I therefore separate 4-3-3 and 4-1-4-1. The disadvantage of 4-3-3 is that this variant is quite risky. If the opponent has played out the 3-man forward line, he can gain an advantage in midfield. As a result, the defending team lacks players, especially on the wings. This means the midfielders have to be ready to run a lot and close these gaps. Many teams that defend in a 4-3-3 therefore switch to a 4-1-4-1 when the opponent approaches their own goal. 4-3-2-1. The 4-3-2-1 formation is better known as the Christmas tree formation. The advantage of this formation is the high density in the center. 3 sixes, in front of them 2 tens and a striker. The center makes this formation almost impossible to break down. The width of the defense is also easy to defend. The outer sixes on the wings, on the other hand, can do this rather openly. Here, the defense of the center is in the foreground. High pressing is also hardly possible with this formation, the striker is too much on his own here. The opponent can easily break the pressing via the wings, 4 rhombus 2. This formation is well positioned in terms of numbers, especially in the central midfield zone. High pressing can also be practiced well from this variant. The 10-man can advance to the same level as the forwards, and a 4-3-3 is quickly formed. The disadvantage of this variant is on the wings. There is a lack of outfield strikers. There is no natural opponent for the opposing defender. This means either long distances for the midfielders and the strikers or a gap in the own defensive formation. Particularly in their own half, teams in a diamond sometimes have problems defending the width of the midfield. They then reshape the diamond into other variations, such as a 4-4-2, 6-3-1. This variant has a clear advantage: the defense is extremely strong in terms of numbers. With 6 players, not only can the width be covered, but there are hardly any gaps between the players in the backline. With a 6-man defense, you can secure your own penalty area. The disadvantage is just as obvious: everywhere else on the field, the team is easily outnumbered. Even with the support of the midfielders, it is almost impossible for the striker to press the opponent effectively. The 3 midfielders have to run a lot to cover the entire width of the field. Thus, this variation is mainly suitable for defending passively in one's own half. Not for nothing did the small Darmstadt bring this variant into the Bundesliga. They defended against individually stronger opponents with a 6-3-1, 5-4-1. Not quite as radical, but also defensively oriented, is the 5-4-1 formation. A 5-man defense, a 4-man midfield, a lone striker, the defensive bulwark is complete. The 5-man defensive line can protect the width and depth, while the 4 men in front ensure dominance in midfield. Here, too, the disadvantage is that the striker is left alone. Pressing the opposing defenders is hardly possible. The only way to do this would be for the midfielders to advance. This would result in a 5-3-2 or a 5-2-3 if the outside players advance. In this case, however, you would have to give up control of the midfield. Therefore, the 5-4-1 is more suitable for passive defense in your own half. 5-3-2. The 5-3-2 has become increasingly popular in professional football in recent years. The advantages lie in the good protection of the center. 3 midfielders and 2 central strikers can build up a superior number in the center, and the opponent is directed to the wing in the build-up to the game. With the 5-man defense, the width as well as the depth can be defended well. Individual players can also move out of the defense to support the midfield. One disadvantage is on the wings. Here, the fullbacks and the midfielders have to do a lot of running work to close the gaps on the outside. Pressing against deep outside defenders is hardly possible. This variant also has its weakness in high pressing. When players from the midfield advance, the midfield is understaffed. This quickly leads to unattractive formations such as 5-2-3 or 5-1-4. The formation is therefore not particularly suitable for attacking pressing. Most teams use a 5-3-2 mainly for a compact defense of the center in a midfield pressing. 5-2-3 or 3-4-3. The 5-2-3 offers the chance to disrupt the opponent with 3 strikers. However, the midfield is understaffed and vulnerable in this variant. Very few teams play a clear 5-2-3, but rather a 3-4-3. In this variant, the 2 fullbacks move into the midfield line. They fill up the midfield and protect the wings. This makes it possible to build up aggressive pressing and keep the pressure high. The defending team is well positioned in terms of numbers in both the forward line and the midfield line. However, there is a danger of being outnumbered in one's own defense, as the 3 defenders cannot cover the width of the field. Since defending the center is more important than defending the wings, this is where gaps open up. Teams in this variation are therefore dependent on winning the ball further forward. The 3-4-3 is therefore often combined with aggressive pressing. This formation is best known for Eintracht Frankfurt, which advanced to the semi-finals of the European League in the 2018-19 season under coach Adi Hütter. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel.